Friends, Shabbat Shalom. It is a deep pleasure to have you all here this morning for the Shabbat after Valentine's Day. I assume that's why you're all here? Nobody ever gets these jokes. They're not really good, I guess. It is an honor and a privilege to welcome you all here this morning as we celebrate Temple Bethel's first ever adult bnai mitzvah class. The 6 individuals seated to my right have been working very hard. I've spent 2 years preparing for last night and this morning. And it is, I know I speak for all of us when I say it is our honor and privilege to celebrate with them. This morning's service will be in many ways very similar to any bar bat mitzvah you have attended here, with a few slight differences. First of all, those who are guests will put on our talit, for those who wear a talit, we'll put on our talitot together with the adult bnai mitzvah students in a couple of moments. The biggest difference from a regular bar bat mitzvah service this morning is that instead of one Devar Torah coming at the end of the Torah service, each of our students will be presenting a drash, a Devar Torah, and those are going to be interspersed throughout the service so that we can focus on the words of each one of them and not be like a little bit zoning out by the time the 6th person speaks. And that way we can celebrate the joy and the thoughts that went into each talk. So each of our students is going to take turns leading a different section of the service, and they will present their drash at the end of their portion of the service. When we get to the Torah service, each one of them is going to be chanting Torah. They'll have an aliyah accompanied by friends and or members of their families. And the 7th aliyah is going to be chanted by Maya, the child of one of our bnai mitzvah students. The person who was originally supposed to chant that was Rachel, granddaughter of Shelley, but Rachel is ill, and so Maya will be capably filling in at the last minute. Any question? Good. Come. Don't they look excited? See the jump, the spring in their step as they shaking with terror. Anything you want to leave up here? Leave up here. Come, gather around. Gather around. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy.
He's given up biting for the day.
After weeks and months and years of spending a great deal of time together, after today, you don't have to see me for a while, for as long as you want. So
We don't have to see each other either.
you don't have to see each other either. I have to say, this group has really developed a beautiful sense of camaraderie, and that's been one of the most joyous things about working with them. I deeply love working with our individual bar and bat mitzvah students, but working with a group of people going through this together has been a really different, unique experience and a real pleasure. As always, when we have a bar and bat mitzvah at Temple Bethel, we begin with the Temple Bethel bnai mitzvah nigun. Please join us. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da da ya da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 ya da 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 da. Da 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 ya da 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 da. Da da da. Ya da 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 da. Please turn to page 141 from October. Mahatovu ohalecha Yaakov. Mahatovu ohalecha Yaakov. Mahatovu ohalecha Yaakov. Mishkenotecha, 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 Yisrael. In a moment, we'll put on our talitot together. I'd like to first invite the talit holders to come up. So those of you who know who you are, know who you are. And Mike, could you grab mine as you come up? Friends, I invite you, if you have a talit, I invite you to take it out and to please rise. Each of our adult bnai mitzvah students is going to be presented with their talit, several of which are brand new for this occasion, by friends and or members of their family. So spread out, 3 on one side, 3 on one side, 3 on the other. And we're going to turn to pages 142 and 143. Betsy, where's yours? You got it. All right. I'm putting mine on. I'm putting mine on first just by myself because I'm going to put Betsy's on for her because her children got snowed in Maryland. We're going to turn to page 142 and 143. Stand behind. We're going to first we're going to read together the English at the top of page 142, and then we'll recite together the bracha, which is the Hebrew, the second paragraph on page 143. Again, if you're putting on a talit, I invite you to take it out and please rise. Please join us. Bless, O my soul, the one, abundant one, my God, how great you grow. In majesty and beauty you are dressed, wrapping yourself in light as in a garment, stretching out the heavens like a shawl. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef b'tzitzit. Whenever you're ready, I invite you to be seated. Everyone except for Carol. Remember to stand in the middle. Stand in the middle.
Please turn to page 144 and 145 to sing Ki Imacha. Page 144 and 145. Ki Imacha. Please turn to page 153 and rise for Birchot HaShachar. We'll chant Birchot HaShachar in a special way. We'll first chant the first 6 words of each blessing in Hebrew, using the traditional words Melech HaOlam instead of what's written in your prayer book. Then we'll chant the second part of each blessing in English. Please rise as we begin on pages 152 and 153, continuing through pages 160 and 161.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from my eyes and slumber from my eyelids. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives the bird of dawn discernment to tell day from night. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches forth the earth upon the waters.
seated. Let's continue on page 165 with Elohai Neshama. Page 165. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Shematata bihi, Tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Shematata bihi, Tehorahi. Ata berata, ata yitzarta, ata nefavta bi. Vilata mishamra bekirbi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Shematata bihi, Tehorahi. I would like to continue with a reading from the back of the prayer book on page 743. Look at this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the realities and verities of existence, the bliss of growth, the splendor of action, the glory of power. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Usually, people end their Devar Torah with thank yous for the help that they've received along the way, but I'd like to start mine with that. To Rabbi Susan Abramson, my first rabbi about 20 years ago in Bedford, Massachusetts, who sent me this special talit from Israel and who is very special to our whole family. To Rabbi Sylvie, who heard me announce that I didn't know Hebrew, didn't want to chant, and would read my Torah portion from the English transliteration. The reason I'm winding up here, now ready to chant in Hebrew, is because her teaching ways are so motivating and so absolutely painless. To Rabbi David, what can I say? You have certainly shown such wisdom and patience, and I applaud you for never losing your cool, even when you were faced with some upstarts in your family. In your class, I'm sorry, in your class. To my daughter Laura and granddaughter Rebecca, I love you. And maybe you both can get back to your own homework now that you've gotten me to this day. Yeah. To my friends and my temple family, I wish I could name each one of you who encouraged me, but there are 6 of us up here, and I'm supposed to keep this brief. So my heartfelt thanks to you all. And now, my Devar Torah. Shabbat Shalom. I have been wandering in the wilderness for 67 years. I am here today to achieve a goal that was unattainable in 1947. I am very soon to be called to the Torah as a bat mitzvah. Last Sunday night, as I thought about the week's Torah portion, Ki Tisa, from the book of Exodus, I realized that I now use the same words and have the same gut feelings as the Israelites who wandered in the desert for 40 years. While Moses was going up and down the mountain, the people below were building a mishkan, a tabernacle. Each adult male was to give 1/2 shekel to fund the building. There was no distinction between the rich and the poor as to the amount to be paid. It was 1/2 shekel for each adult. With this giving, they hoped and believed that it would block out any bad luck. As we read in Exodus 30:12, a verse I will chant this morning, each shall pay a ransom for himself, that no plague may come upon them. The expression used is kain ayin hora. If you say it fast in Yiddish, it comes out kunahara. The Israelites believed that their donation of the silver coin would prevent any plagues from happening to them. As I was working on our mitzvah project, Meals on Wheels, our group put together bags of non-perishable food to bring to each home. In case the storm prevented the drivers from delivering that day's food, the folks would have enough to eat until their deliveries could be resumed. While I was putting notes on the bags, I kept thinking that since I was doing something good for these less fortunate people, I hoped never to become one of them. As I was growing up, I kept hearing my parents say kanahara whenever they received happy news or saw a new baby or heard something exciting or good about someone. It never occurred to me until this week that it is the same phrase and the same mindset that the Israelites had in the desert thousands of years ago. And so, while I was shopping for and packing up the items on our list, I kept thinking that just as our ancestors were giving the 1/2 shekel to build the Mishkan, in our own way, our bnai mitzvah class was building our community by giving food to those in need. And I am able to identify with those in the desert who felt as though they were warding off the evil eye by speaking those words while doing something charitable. When I wake up each morning and I thank God for my daughters and granddaughters and my blessed life, I now know why I end my prayer with one word. Amen, Kanahara. Thank you. Thanks, Shabbat Shalom. And I would like to invite my classmate, Bruce.
Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome, Bruce.
Shabbat Shalom. At this time, I'd like to please invite you to turn to page 169 for the blessing before Torah study, which we will recite together in Hebrew and then in English. Page 169. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher gedeshanu v'snayanu li'asot direi Torah. Blessed are you, the one of Sinai, our God, the sovereign of all worlds, who made us holy in your mitzvot and command us to occupy ourselves with the words of Torah. We'll continue on page 177 with the Barak Sha'amiyah, page 177. Baruch please turn to page 189 to Mihaish, which is the last three lines on the page in Hebrew and transliterated below the line. Page 189. At this time, I'd like to share a reading that can be found in your program. It's a poem written by Ruth Greer. It was no bush, but Moses' soul, touched by the finger of God, that flamed and burned. Perhaps in the ecstasy he wished for death, but he burned and was not destroyed. He flared up, but was not consumed. God sent him against his will to the slaves in Egypt. God made him with the fire of faith, a wise and mighty leader. For in the light of faith, the mind understands. In the warmth of faith, the heart loves. And in faith, the soul finds its joy. Of all your blessings, God, faith is the first. We beseech you, Lord of all peoples, touch us with your fire, burn us with your flame. With faith in you, make us whole. Let's turn to page 211, where we'll sing the last four lines of Psalm 92, Zadik Hatamar. Page 211. Zadik Hatamar Yifra Ezret Bavano Yifgei Sheturim Bevet Adonai Bechatzrot Eloheinu Ya'afriku Odenu Beseva Deshemin Vera'anahim Iyu Lehagi Ki Yashar Adonai Tzuri Velo Avatavo. At this time, I'd like to present my Devar Torah. As you may or may not know, today's Torah portion from the book of Exodus is Ki Tisa, which means when you take up, which is, as you may see, is quite applicable to me today. 10 years ago, I made a phone call that started me on a quest that brought me to Temple Bethel, to my strong belief in Judaism, and today to my bar mitzvah. Glenn and I had brought my widowed, terminally ill brother-in-law, Glenn's brother Andy, to Williamsburg to spend the last few days or weeks in a nearby nursing home where we could be near him. We thought that Andy being Jewish, he might find comfort in seeing a rabbi. Of course, at this time, I, not being Jewish, and Glenn not being a member of a synagogue, I took the easy way. I looked in the telephone directory. And I found Temple Bethel, and fortuitously, when I called, Rabbi Sylvie answered the phone. After introducing myself to her and explaining what I was calling about, Sylvie, without hesitation, agreed to meet with Andy, and she continued to do so regularly for about 6 weeks until Andy passed away. And then, without also being asked, she also offered to conduct services for Andy. She was a source of strength to Andy in those last few days, and a source of strength and comfort to both Glenn and I during this most trying of times. Having married into a Jewish family 50 years ago, this coming May, is this a short period? Just a short time? I developed a very strong interest and admiration for all things Jewish, and had previously expressed several times to Glenn an interest in exploring the steps necessary to becoming a Jew by choice. I decided that this was the opportune time to pursue that interest, and I asked Rabbi Sylvie if I could discuss this with her. After several conversations with her, and after convincing her of my sincerity, as you may or may not know, somebody is usually going to be refused 3 times before they're finally accepted. But after convincing her of my sincerity, she agreed to undertake the instructions necessary for me to eventually being called to the Torah. What followed was almost 2 years of meeting and studying with her almost every week, and sometimes twice a week. A lengthy reading list, questions and answers, all culminating in a hatapat dam, going before a bet din, and going to the mikvah, and finally being called to the Torah on Kislev 9, 5766, December 10, 2005. As you see, this quest has become, for me, my exodus, my wandering in the wilderness, where, Kitisa, I took up this wonderful journey that led me here today. My only wish was that I had started this journey sooner. It's been a great honor and privilege to be a member of the first adult bnai mitzvah class and to work and study with a group of intelligent, articulate, caring, and yes, entertaining ladies. Kept me on my toes. I want to thank, first of all, Rabbi Sylvie, who started me on this quest. To Rabbi Miera, who introduced me to the study of the Talmud, and to Rabbi David, who gave me the opportunity to arrive at this point in my studies, and those studies continue on. A special thanks to Alan Howard, who is not only my tutor, but a person that I can only hope to emulate in some small way. My love and thanks to my wife, Glenn, for the encouragement, for letting me take the time away from her to do this. And for many others, Erica in the back, for being here today. She had a long journey. But for many others, for their, that are too numerous to mention, that encourage me along the way, and I hope that they know who they are. But let me also thank the entire congregation for all the acts of kindness, their warmth and friendliness, and acceptance of Glenn and I for these last 10 years. I came as a stranger, but you let me in. At this time, I would like to call up Louis. Oh, excuse me. Oh, yes, I'd like to call everybody. Beg your pardon. I jumped ahead. And I'd like for everyone to join us on page 231, Psalm 150. Please stand. Hallelujah.
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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. El Pecojo. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. King Auzo.
Hallelujah.
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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Vivarata. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Carol of good Lord.
Hallelujah.
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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Take Kashofar. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Nehem Benvinor.
Hallelujah.
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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Betov umakol. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Vini ve'uga.
Hallelujah.
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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Betzil Tzalehem Shama. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Betzil Tzalei Truah.
Kol hashama.
Kol Hashama.
Teheleya.
Tehaleya. Kol Hashama. Tehaleya. Hallelujah. Kol Hashama. Tehaleya. Hallelujah.
Please be seated.
Nice ruach by the Delphinei Mitzvah class.
And now I'll turn it over to Louis.
Shabbat Shalom. Let's turn to page 235, and we will chant the first few words on page 235 together in Hebrew, and then I will share a poem written by my father that you can find in your programs. Nishmat kol chai, tevarech et shimcha, Adonai Eloheinu. My father wrote this poem after my parents' first visit to Israel. They were greatly inspired by that trip, even after the bus in front of theirs was blown up by terrorists, which my mother told me casually much later. Or I wouldn't have let her travel anymore. And I did not know that my father wrote poetry until years later. My sister-in-law discovered his poems and published them. So this is called Israel, Our Love. The pull of the land, how else define it? something enclosing her scattered children that will not leave them, puncturing thousands of miles, ancient miles. Before their eyes she regally stands, entreating to come back, the blazing jewel in a crown of imperishable fire, that no enemy erase her timeless glory, as prophets point to coming Messiah, promised for the healing years. You are Israel. We hear you say now, return to me, who in centuries past gentled your birth. While David tended sheep to await Samuel's hand, choosing a shepherd for Jerusalem's throne, my father would sometimes come to services here, and he died too young at the age of 99. We continue in the middle of the page on page 241. Shopein ad maharom v'kadosh shemoho v'chatu v'ramenu tzadikim Adonai l'sharim navar tehillah v'fi yesharim tikromam u'tivrei tzadikim tikparah u'vilshon chasidim tikadash u'v'kerev kadoshim titalah. We continue on page 243 at the beginning of the first paragraph and then read silently for a while. U'makalot rivaot Amkabed Israel. We continue on page 243 at the beginning of the second paragraph on page 243 and then read silently. Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad Malkeinu. We continue on page 243 at the asterisk, 3 lines from the bottom of the paragraph in Hebrew until the end of page 243. Barakot v'oda'ot me'ata ve'od olam. Baruch atah Adonai el melech gadol v'tishbachot el ha'oda'ot Adonai nifla'ot haboker b'shirei simra melech el ka'ed ha'olamim. Please rise and turn to page 245 for the Hatzi Kaddish on page 245. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Amen. V'alma divra hirutei ve'imli melhutei. V'chayei honuvyo omenkom v'chayei dehol beit Israel. Ba'agala, ba'agala, uvizman kahariv v'himeru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorah le'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarah v'ishtabah v'itapar v'itramam v'itnaseh v'ithadar v'taleh v'talal shemei tekusha b'reihu leila min kol birhata v'shirata tushbechata v'nekemata damihiran v'alma v'himeru. Amen. Please be seated. I'd like to share my thoughts on the Torah portion. And as Carol has said, my portion involves a procedure which takes place during the Israelites' long journey from Egypt. I'd like to start with my mother's favorite poem by Robert Frost, which describes my journey leading to my bat mitzvah today, and I'm sure familiar to you. The road not taken. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Back to the Torah portion, we find the Israelites on their unscripted journey, administering a bureaucratic procedure with several goals. The requirement, a half shekel from every male over age 20. The multiple purposes included to take a census to identify the number of available males for possible battles, so there'd be no plague among them, to contribute to the building and maintenance of the temple, which would be a portable structure suitable for travel. And last, but definitely not least, the half shekel contribution is, quote, an offering to the Lord to make atonement for one's soul, or expiation for your soul, depending on the transliteration. I will concentrate today on the Lord's directive in the portion that the same amount is required of each person as a ransom for his soul or herself. A half a shekel, apparently not a large amount for that time. Verse 15 says, the rich shall not give more, and the poor shall not give less than the half shekel, when they give the offering to the Lord to make atonement for your souls. This equality of contribution confused me at first. I believe in the sliding fee scale. That is, that each gives according to his income. In my work, I informally apply a sliding fee scale concept. I reduce fees for the less affluent at my discretion, and sometimes charge them nothing or can't get anything. I obtained some insight when I watched a program, I'm sure many of you did, on Virginia's massive resistance, closing the public schools rather than integrate and give blacks an equal standing to obtain an education. I conclude that the requirement of a half shekel equality between the rich and the poor was to make clear the Jewish principle that all persons stand equal before the Lord. All will receive the same consideration from the Lord, and all have the same responsibilities. Yes, the poor will have to work harder to obtain their contribution, the rich less hard, but all will then achieve equality of status before the Lord. Finally, as Carol has pointed out, times have changed. Women are also counted among the Jews responsible to the Lord to provide their shekels, to atone for their souls, and to ensure that this temple Bethel has a building rather than a portable tent and a roof over our tent. I relate the Torah portion and my journey towards a better understanding of Judaism through my commitment to this, my bat mitzvah, to my personal commitment to serve the Lord by using the skills I have to enable those less fortunate or poorer, as so identified in the portion, to achieve their equality of opportunity, whether spiritually or in the community. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this ritual and ceremony, which has given me a deeper understanding and commitment to Judaism. The ceremony today is not an ending, but a beginning for me. My only regret is that my parents are not here to share this experience, but I believe they are here in spirit. I'll close with a short invocation known as the Serenity Prayer that was attributed to Reinhold Niebuhr. He was an American theologian and civil rights activist, which assists me in my continuing spiritual journey. I was talking to my daughter who is going through a rough time, and I said, "So, are you saying their Serenity Prayer?" And she said, "At least 10 times a day, Mom." So, and you all know it. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Finally, I'd like to thank all those who assisted me on the journey culminating today, my supportive family, my good friends, some of whom traveled a long way, my Temple Bethel family, Rabbi David and Sylvia, my 5 fellow travelers, and especially Maya Conrad, who tutored me through this challenging process, and I couldn't have made it without her. And I recognize the lay leader of the Jewish community of the Outer Banks, George Lurie, who also inspired me, and his wife, Karen, who came all the way through snow and sleet. Finally, thanks to our son, Mark, who traveled through many airplane delays from California to be here today. And I'd like to invite Shelley to come up now.
I could have done it like that. Because I am complaining. Oh, where are we? Please rise as we continue on page 247 with the call to prayer, the Baruch. Baruch Adonai Hamivora.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorah, Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamivora, Leolam Vaed. We may be seated as we die, 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 die. Die, 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 die. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvorei choshech ohosei shalom uvorei et hakol. Let's turn to page 253, where we'll sing El Adon. The transliteration can be found on page 255. El Adon hakol hamasim baruch umvorach befi kol neshama kolo betuvo male olam ka'at u'tfuna sobevimoto Hamika el hayom hakodesh v'nei garbachavo amerkavo zechutu mishor livnei chiso hesed harachamim livnei kevodo tovim me'orot shevara Eloheinu yitzham beda'at bevina uvaskel koach ugvura natan bahem lirot umoshim bekerem tevel maleim ziv umvifim noga na'ezim bechol ha'olam semechim b'tzeitam v'sasim bevoam ohosim be'em ha'retzon konams Notnim lishmot zoholav marina lezechem malchuto page 772, where I'd like to share a reading by Rabbi Jacob Reimer, page 772. We cannot merely pray to God to end war, for the world was made in such a way that we must find our own path of peace within ourselves and with our neighbor. We cannot merely pray to God to root out prejudice, for we already have eyes with which to see the good in all people, if we would only use them rightly. We cannot merely pray to God to end starvation, for we already have the resources with which to feed the entire world, if we would only use them wisely. We cannot merely pray to God to end despair, for we already have the power to clear away slums and to give hope, if we would only use our power justly. We cannot merely pray to God to end disease, for we already have great minds with which to search out cures and healings, if we would only use them constructively. Therefore, we pray instead for strength, determination, and willpower, to do instead of merely to pray, to become instead of merely to wish, that our world may be safe and that our lives may be blessed. Let's continue on page 269 with the last two lines in Hebrew of Or Hadash. Or Hadash shall Sion Ta'ir V'nizkeh Kulanu B'mhera Le'oro. Or Hadash shall Sion Ta'ir V'nizkeh Kulanu B'mhera Le'oro. Or Hadash shall Sion Ta'ir V'nizkeh Kulanu B'mhera Le'oro. Baruch atah Adonai Yosef Hame'oro. Page 273, where we'll continue with Ahava Rabbah. Answer if you can, or just shut it off.
God's calling.
Should have called earlier. That's why you should have called earlier, or she should have. Ahava Rabbah Avtanu Adonai Eloheinu Chem Lagedolah V'Tera Kamalta Aleinu Avinu Malkeinu Tavor Avoteinu V'Imoteinu Shabatu Vecha Avinu Malkeinu V'Telamdeinu V'Haim Ken Techonenu Mamdeinu Avinu Ha'arachaman Amrachem Rachem Aleinu V'ten Belibeinu Lehavin Ulhaskil Lishmo Ahalil Moholu Lelameh Lishmor Velasot Ulekayem Et Kol Divrei Talmud Toratecha B'Ahava. And now I'm going to deliver my drash, because the Torah portion comes up much later. But in today's Torah portion, Moses argues with God. to save the Israelites from annihilation by God for having created and sacrificed to an idol, a golden calf. Moses argues that God, many centuries before, had made a commitment to the Israelites to make them a mighty nation. God then brought them into an idol-worshipping world where they were enslaved, and then God forgot about them for 400 years. This unseeable, untouchable, infinite entity, he should be here now listening, disappeared for 4 centuries, while generations of Israelite slaves were born, matured, died in an alien society. When God finally remembers his or her commitment and becomes present again, he helps Moses guide the living out of slavery and lead them into another strange land. Moses then leaves the people to go on an errand, and he is gone for more than a month. You all know the joke about the guy who goes out with a bottle of milk and doesn't come back. Not even Aaron knows where Moses is, what he is doing, if he still lives. Why? Who would expect 1.2 million unorganized and leaderless people, having lived in an idol-worshipping society and now dumped in an alien environment, to not want a focal point, guidance from somewhere, something? A God had made a commitment. Now neither that God nor his appointed leader was evident anywhere. What happened to that commitment made so long ago and only recently rediscovered? The original commitment was mutual, requiring 2 parties, the Israelites and their accepted lone deity. One party strayed, and then the other party strayed. As Linda Lohman tells her sons in Death of a Salesman, attention must be paid. Attention must be paid. Commitment requires attention from all parties to a commitment to maintain it and keep it relevant. As we and the worlds we live in have evolved over time, we have changed the ways in which we pay attention, the ways in which we express our commitment, maintain our Judaism, and incorporate it into our ever-evolving lives. We gave up sacrificial ritual and substituted prayer. Most of us have accepted women as equal practitioners of Judaism. To consciously disregard a rule is also to recognize that there is a rule. These changes are signs that we continue to recognize our commitment and work to incorporate that commitment into our daily lives. I have been Jewish since birth. My sense of what that means comes mostly from my paternal grandmother, Gussie Cohen, a practicing Orthodox Jew. Ritual is good, she would note. It is a reminder. It creates an ingathering. It provides opportunity to pass on stories and perspectives, and it can be beautiful. But to be a religious Jew, she would state, is to be committed to active consideration of your fellow human beings 24 hours a day, every day. I have tried to be more religious than ritualist, hopefully succeeding more than failing. At the behest of my granddaughters, who regretfully could not be here today, I entered into this bat mitzvah adventure 2 years ago. During this period, I have many times asked myself why. And I think I have found an answer. To make a public commitment. Sid and I lived together before we married. After that ceremony and family celebration in his sister Hilda's and her husband Paul's home in West Hartford, Sid and I returned to our tiny cold water flat in Manhattan. Things were different. We were different. Now we didn't pass each other in that very small space without hands reaching out to touch. Not planned, just reconnecting, recommitting. I did not get to today without the help and inspiration of many people. As I have noted before in other places, everyone I have known has played a part in helping me become me. But I want to single out for special thanks today my grandmother, my parents, my daughters Kim and Maya, my son-in-law John, and again Maya for being inspirational and a patient tutor. My granddaughters Jordan, Felisa, and Raquel for being wonderful and supportive of the Ancient One. That's because I once had called their parents old in front of me. And I said, well, if they're old, what am I? And they looked at me and said, you're ancient. Thank you, Rabbi Sylvie, Rabbi Meira, and Rabbi David for imparting knowledge and caring and creating community. To this congregation for taking us in and caring for us. To this Torah study group for tickling my brain. To my classmates for their support and companionship. To Norm for taking over my assignment today as greeter. I couldn't see myself standing up here and going, come on in. To family who have come great distances to help me celebrate, despite snow, delays. To those whose planes got canceled and couldn't make it. And to Sid for bringing more love and laughter into my life than I ever imagined I would experience. I invite Deanna to come up to the bima. Thank you all.
Shabbat Shalom. We'll continue at the top of page 275 with Vahaha Er Enenu. Vahaha Er Enenu, Betorah Teka, V'dahavek Lebeinu, V'mitzvah Teka, V'heyached Lehevaveinu, Li'ahava U'yira Et Shemecha, Now I'd like to share a poem by Herb Watson, which can be found in your programs. The Near Woods, a Remembrance. It was bordering a cleared area of clay soil and scrub pines in full sun, close to the backyard where I lived. Between this level place and the sudden wall of trees, there was a clear demarcation. Entering the woods, there was that strange feeling of coming into another world. The light dramatically darker and so different, illuminating softly but precisely every lobe of every dead leaf on the floor and every green leaf in so many layers as I gazed up. And looking down the oddly lit path, almost with fear, as if it weren't meant for human beings, it made me stop in my tracks. For death and life in such equal degrees now surrounded me, and the twain seemed to merge together here. The new coming out of the old, the living from the dead, and it came close to making sense. It seemed a religious site of sacred rites, perhaps, a cathedral, mosque, vast synagogue domed with treetops curving inward, forming a graceful vault with whispering chants from wind sifting through. Angels were somehow up there, their green wings fluttering incense and blessings, inviting one to daily worship services. There was a large commanding beach with quite a spread of limbs and nothing growing underneath. This must have been the altar. The Near Woods was a special place, and I felt humbled to be there. Thank you, Herb.
we sing the second paragraph on page 275, it's traditional, if you're wearing a talit, you gather together the four corners of the talit in one hand and hold them until the end of the third paragraph after the Shema. Let's turn to page 277 for the Shema. When we say the words of the Shema, it's traditional to cover your eyes. We recite the Baruch Shem Kavod line silently, then we'll join together to chant the V'ahavta. Please join me on page 277. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'kol nafshecha uv'kol nafshecha uv'kol me'odecha v'hayu hadarim ha'eleh asher anaki mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha beitecha uv'leftecha v'derech uv'shoftecha uv'kumecha uv'shartam le'od al yadecha v'hayu letotafot ve'en einecha uv'tataham al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha. We continue reading silently either Biblical Selection 1 on page 279 or Biblical Selection 2 on page 283. We'll join together in a few minutes with the third line from the bottom on page 285. now I'd like to share a few thoughts. I'm sorry. We continue with the last three lines on page 285. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzitechem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'olim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Amen. Now I'd like to share a few thoughts with you. The portion of the Torah I will be chanting today deals with the tabernacle and its furnishings. The first of these furnishings is a copper laver where the priests must wash their hands and feet before entering the tent of meeting or when they come near the altar. Before we enter the tabernacle or the place where we worship, we must cleanse ourselves to make that transition from what is not holy. Here we have a clear demarcation of what is holy, a clearly defined separation from the mundane. For me, the laver symbolizes the point where we purify and prepare ourselves to feel the presence of God. We go through that process of cleansing ourselves when we leave the less important things in our lives aside and focus on what is of utmost importance. Only then will we rise up to a more spiritual level and allow the divine to enter. The cleansing aspect prepares us for this, allowing us to focus on a higher level and enhancing our connection to God. In this respect, we are creating a special place where we can renew ourselves and bring about peacefulness and wholeness to our souls. We do the same thing at Shabbat. We light the candles to mark the beginning of Shabbat and break away from all of our work from the rest of the week, removing the shackles that enslave us and allowing ourselves to focus on a more spiritual level. We change gears and renew ourselves, bringing out wholeness within ourselves. In Herb's poem entitled The Near Woods, he writes, between this level place and the sudden wall of trees there was a clear demarcation, a large commanding beach that must have been the altar, a special place. So here am I at the bimah, and I do feel humbled to be here. As I donned my talit today, I felt a clear delineation of going from one place to another special place, ready for renewal and reaffirming what means the most to me. It is this renewal that has brought me here, and what an honor it is. Studying for my bat mitzvah is something I've been wanting to do for many years, even decades, probably 40 years or more in the wilderness. It has always been on the back of my mind, but very close to my heart, and I'm very happy to have this opportunity. I would like to thank my coach and tutor, Rabbi David, for this wonderful opportunity, for his guidance and knowledge, his patient support, and constant encouragement. I would also like to thank Rabbi Sylvie for all her inspiration and guidance over the years and for being here. Many thanks go to my teammates, Betsy, Bruce, Carol, Lois, and Shelley. It's been a wonderful journey, and I could not have traveled it without you. You all gave me so much support, hope, and encouragement. I will certainly miss this journey, but will always remember you because we took it together. Special thanks to Jill for all the help she's ever given me, and so willingly and lovingly. I'm grateful to my family for all their love and support. To Herb, my poet and musician in residence, for listening to me endlessly chant my verses. I'm sure you know them by now. To my stepmom, who invited me on a trip to Israel, where I first felt rebirth. I thank my parents from the bottom of my heart for all their love and support and all the lessons they've taught me over the years. My father, who gave me the gift of Judaism, and my mother, who secured that gift through her conversion, a gift that I am committed to preserve. Would you like to come up?
Yes, your cause.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Well, you've heard many nice remarks. I hope I can live up to this. Let's turn to page 290 and all recite the first 5 lines in English. And then we'll sing together the traditional melody from Mi Chamocha. on page 291. When we reach the words Tzur Yisrael, please rise. Give praises to the highest God. Blessed is God, the one to bless. So Moses, Miriam, and the Israelites came forth with song to you
in boundless happiness, and they all cried, Mi Kamocha, Ha'elim Adonai, Mi Kamocha, Nezar HaKodesh, Neorat Ilo, Oseh Feller, Shirach HaDeshah, Shivku Gelulim, Shimcha Asvahatayam, Yachad Kulam Hodu Vehim Leklu V'Amru, Adonai Imlo, L'Olam Va'ed, Tzur Yisrael, Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael, Ufdei Finu Mecha, Yehuda Ve'Yisrael, Go Aleinu, Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ka'al Yisrael.
You're going to be standing for a bit of time with some prayers that continue after this. Those who feel that they cannot, please do sit down. I would like to share with you a reading from Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass. I have perceived that to be with those I like is enough. To stop in company with the rest at evening is enough. To be surrounded by beautiful, curious, breathing, laughing flesh is enough. To pass among them, to touch anyone, to rest my arm ever so lightly round his or her neck for a moment. What is this, then? I do not ask any more delight. I swim in it as in a sea. There is something in staying close to men and women and looking on them, and in the contact and odor of them that pleases the soul well. All things please the soul, but these please the soul well. In a moment we will continue with the Amidah. We will chant the first three blessings aloud together, and then we will have silent time in the middle of this section. Again, during that quiet time, you may stand or sit. After some time for silent prayer, we will join together on page 319. And I call upon Rabbi David, who has been resting much too long, to join me in the Amidah.
It's very nice to sit and watch other people, lead services. It's fun.
It's over.
Page 295. Adonai Sefatai Tifta Ufia Gita Dilaterka Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotinu Ve'imoteinu Elohei Abraham Mashiach Tzidkecha, v'yeinu tirena malchutecha, kadavar ha'amor b'shirei uzecha, yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai es Zion, ledor vador, hallelujah.
Ledor vador.
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador.
ledor vador, nagid God lecha.
Ledor vador.
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador.
ledor vador, nagid God lecha. Ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatecha nakdish, kedushatecha nakdish. V'shivchacha Eloheinu, mihipinu lo yamush le'olam va'ed.
Ledor vador.
Ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid God lecha.
Ledor vador.
Ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid God lecha. Ki el melech gadol v'kadosh ata, gadol v'kadosh ata. Baruch ata, Adonai, ha'el ha'kadosh. We continue silently for the next several pages.
You okay?
It's nice to come up and look around and get to see who's here. It's much harder to see everybody when I'm like just turning my head around from the front seat. You're taking attendance. Friends, we're going to continue in a moment on page 319 with Birkat HaShalom, the blessing for peace. In ancient times, the Kohanim, the priests, would bless the people with these words. Today, we bless each other with these words. And we're going to do this in our own special way. On Saturday mornings, when we have almost this many people here on a regular basis. Even more. We make a circle around the Torah table and the first few rows, just going back about a little bit back. And we cover each other with our talitot, and we bless each other with peace. On this morning, I'm going to invite you to, while you're sitting, just look around and see who is and isn't wearing a talit, who you're close to. And I'm going to invite those who are not wearing talitot to, in a moment, get up and maneuver yourself so you are underneath the talit of others. Our talitot, one of the things that a talit gives us is a little personal space of sanctuary. And as we bless each other with one of the oldest prayers that we know, as we ask God's presence and light and shalom to be in our lives, we want to create those sanctuaries for each other. So this will require you to move around, and the adult bnai mitzvah class and I are going to create a model circle up here. How circular your circles end up being is totally up to you, and without question this will cause disruption, and I wish you luck and good fortune as it, however long it takes to make a circle. Once you make the circle, we'll say the blessing, then after the blessing we'll lower our arms, but stay together in circles to sing Sim Shalom on the next page. Model circle. Model circle. Come. You want to go around the table? Can we go around the table? Yeah, we can. Perfect. Hey, you guys are doing great. I've only, no one's thrown any tomatoes yet.
Oh, we got plenty of time.
Up here. We got to hand them out.
No.
There's still one opportunity.
You have lots?
Okay.
We all get
Really?
to read?
I see we have very skilled circle makers here in our community this morning. I salute you. We join together on the top of page 319. And again, after we say the blessing, I invite you to lower your arms, but remain together in your circles as we'll sing Sim Shalom on the next page. Page 319. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, barchenu babracha hamishuleshet ha'amura, mipi aharon uvanav ka'amur, yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha, yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom, ken yehi ratzon. Sim, sim, sim shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha haba olam. Sim, sim, sim shalom tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael amecha. Barchenu avinu kulanu ke'echa bi'or panecha. Sim shalom, sim, sim, sim shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha haba olam. Sim, sim, sim shalom tova uvracha. Ki v'yor panecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, Torat chaim v'ahavat chesed u'tzedakah uvracha v'rachamim v'chaim v'shalom. Sim shalom, sim, sim, sim shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha haba olam. Sim, sim, sim shalom tova uvracha. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amecha, amecha Yisrael, b'chol eit u'b'chol shah mishlomecha. Sim shalom, sim, sim, sim shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha haba olam. Sim, sim, sim shalom tova uvracha. Baruch atah Adonai oseh hashalom. We sing Oseh Shalom on the next page as we return to our places and remain standing there. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael,
able to, please remain standing as we complete this portion of the service on page 381 with the Kaddish Tit Kabbalah. Yit kadal v'yit kadash me rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach hirosei v'yamlik malchutei. V'chayei chon of yomei chon of chayei to kol beit Yisrael. V'agolo v'zman kori v'imaru.
Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach. Ve'olam olam me'almaya. Yitbarach.
Yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitparar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal. Shmei dekudah shabru.
Barichu.
Le'olam min kol b'chata v'shirota tushbarata v'nechamata. Damiran b'yama v'imaru.
Amen.
Tit kabal zalot chon uvo utchon. Dakol beit Yisrael kadam avuchon. Divishmaya v'imaru.
Amen.
O say shalom b'ramav huya no. Hey shlama rabba min shemaya v'hayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imaru.
Amen. Osei shalom b'romav. Huyasei shalom. Aleinu v'yakol Yisrael. V'yakol yoshvei tevel. V'imaru. Amen.
Please be seated. That's the best part. A few words. When I was very, very young, I began my Jewish studies at Bethel, and I am still studying, and I am still at Bethel. Of course, they were in different places. But it was at a Bethel that I was confirmed, married, and buried my oldest brother, Joel. And at this Bethel, I was witness to my daughter Jane's wedding, the naming of her daughter, Emily, and the burial of my husband, Edgar. How many memories I have of significant life events in a place called Bethel, House of God. But life is not made of memories, significant and poignant as they may be. It is also filled with hope and vision for a better future. I have come to Bethel in a time of transition and freedom after caring for my ill husband for 17 years. Bethel has been for me more of a sanctuary and an invitation to growth and involvement than I could ever have imagined. It has been a new experience for me to say yes to every invitation without reservation, impediment, or carrying responsibilities. I came to Bethel, I came home, and I came to a family. As the poet Robert Frost says of home and family, when you go there, they have to take you in. And this is what happened. In my transition, I found renewal and structure, just what I needed to fill an empty heart and a loss of purpose. I found services at the end of each week, something I dearly looked forward to, although it was many months before I could come up to the Torah for a mourner's aliyah. I found a community of like-minded individuals in my age group. Are you nodding? I found a deeper connection to Jewish ritual and an upgrade in my ability to read Hebrew. And now I have the honor of chanting directly from the Torah for the first time in my long life. You know I'm not 13 anymore. I would discuss some aspect of my section of this week's Torah portion, but my classmates have covered it so deftly that I will simply say that my reading describes the ritual washing and anointing of the high priest, Aaron, before he enters the tent of meeting. This ceremony is a means of consecrating Aaron to divine service in preparation for his pivotal role. Rabbi Amy Shinerman of Temple Emmanuel in San Jose notes that the garments reserved for the high priest now adorn our Torahs, and the use of sacrificial offerings has morphed into expressing spirituality in prayer. Prayer is central to Judaism for the past and for the future. At the high holiday prayers, we look back to loved ones lost, and we look forward to a year of renewed health and fulfillment. At our bnai mitzvah, we pray for the ability to perform the traditions of Judaism that constitute our heritage. The most pivotal part of this service is our reading directly from the Torah. No aspect of this ceremony has been more stressed or has been learned more carefully than our brief chanting. In some form, tenuous or confident, we come prepared to read the words of an original, meticulously handwritten document exactly as it has been chanted for many centuries. With this proclamation, we declare our respect, acceptance, and responsibility to become another link in the chain of tradition that reaches back to Aaron and his consecration for divine service. I could not have imagined what this day would mean to me when I entered the class. I have grown in independence, sought new friendships, and revived some older ones. I have explored aspects of interest that have been dormant for years. For these gifts, I thank all who have raised me from grief to laughter, who have showered me with affection and stood with me in the dark. I offer my most abiding love and pride to my children, currently mired in about 10 acres of snow, who have encouraged me to take this journey and protected me in every way. To my bnai mitzvah group, to Rabbis David and Sylvie, and my tutor Maya Conrad, thank you is not nearly enough for all your nurturing. How much has changed since I was very, very young, but Bethel, house of God, is still my safe harbor. And now I turn over to Rabbi David for the Torah service.
Such nice talks. Beautiful. Friends, we're going to continue in a moment with the Torah service. Normally I talk for a while at this time, and I partially do that to give the bar bat mitzvah student a chance to sit down and rest. How long do you need? Half an hour. We're going to continue in a moment with the Torah service. Each of our adult bnai mitzvah students will be reading directly from the Torah. They will each come up for the aliyah, the honor of blessing, saying the blessings before and after the Torah, before each reading, and they'll be accompanied for those blessings by friends and family members. This morning, the adult bnai mitzvah class is reading from Parashat Ki Tisa, which they've described very extensively. There's not much left for me to say, except this is one of my favorite portions of the Torah. All right. Anyone who comes often knows there's a lot of those. Not every single week, but often enough. This has the most important story in the last third of the book of Exodus, the story of the golden calf. The question of what it means that these Israelites need to make something to pray to, that they are struck by the absence of Moses, as Moses is up on the mountain chatting with God. This portion also includes one of my very favorite and most important teachings, I think, in the Torah. At first, all of God's laws and rules and words are written down on tablets, which God's finger whatever you might imagine that to be like. It says that God carves that with God's own finger. These are the tablets that Moses brings down and which Moses smashes. If you like the Mel Brooks version, it's the 3 tablets that turn into the 2. If you prefer the biblical version, then it's just 2 tablets that come down that Moses smashes. When Moses goes back up later and creates a second set of tablets, these tablets are dictated by God, but actually written down by Moses, teaching us the importance of our partnership with God in creating a kingdom, a society, based on the teachings that came to us at Sinai. We need to be working together. God cannot do it alone. It is our responsibility to do this with God, whatever we understand God to be. 6 of you are doing that today. I've been doing that over the last however long. I don't want to put any years on anybody. 7.5. 7.5 what? Blanks? Yes. Dog years are good, thank you. And we all do that by coming together, by creating community, by witnessing sacred acts, and by sharing ritual together. So a really important portion. You can see why I would say that's one of my very favorites. For our Torah portion, during our Torah service this morning, we're going to have ark openers and closers who are some of our upcoming Bar Bat Mitzvah students. Our Gabbai will be Rabbi Sylvia Skolnick, our Rabbi Emerita. John Burton will be lifting the Torah later, and Flo Gussman and Alan Howard will be binding. Right, you didn't decide to switch it? You asked Flo, you don't want to lift the Torah. No, all right, we offered. And we look forward to beautiful chanting, which will come this morning. Good enough? Reading from the Torah is the greatest ritual challenge we have for those who are unaware. Hebrew is written, the Hebrew letters, the Hebrew alphabet are all consonants. The vowels are the dots and dashes that appear between and above and below the letters. The Torah is written without vowels. When we learn to chant Torah, each word has a particular note and melody, and there's almost a code. There are little symbols that teach us what to chant. The Torah does not have those either. Chanting from the Torah, reading from the Torah, it's like reading a map without the street names on it, or without the street lines on it. And either one works. It's a guide. But in order to step up and stand up in front of the Torah, you need to spend time preparing to do it, absorbing what's there. I think there's often something kind of magical, something alchemical that goes on when a person stands in front of the Torah. Whether they chant it exactly the way it's written or not doesn't really matter. It's presence, its connection with this sacred text in this form from which we have been interacting with it for thousands of years. And I salute all of you who come to read from the Torah this morning. We'll begin the Torah service on page 383. Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai v'ein kema'asecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed Adonai oz le'amoho yitein Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom Av ha'rachamim heitiv v'virtzoncha et Zion Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim Ki v'cha levad batachnu Melech el ram v'nisa Adon olamim. I'd like to invite forth our ark openers, David Bass and Finn Hulse, who will have the next 2 bnai mitzvot here at Temple Bethel, as well as Bruce Sykes and the entire adult bnai mitzvah class. Bruce will be carrying the Torah. His class will be accompanying him. We continue turning to page 385, and we rise in honor of the Torah. Vayivim soa ha'aron, vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, v'yafutzu oivecha, sometimes we pass it midor, amongst generations. And this is only in alphabetical order by last name, not in age order or anything like that, is how we've lined up this morning. And our adult b'nai mitzvah classmates will pass the Torah to each other.
From the oldest to the prettiest.
We continue on page 387 with the last paragraph on the page. Be'ana rachetz, v'lish me kadisha, kadisha yakira, ana amar tushbefkan. Be'ana rachetz, v'lish me kadisha, kadisha yakira, ana amar tushbefkan. Yehera ava kodamav, jaitiv tahap lihibi ke'oraita, v'tashli mishalin derelihibi, v'libadev kol amav Yisrael, letavul chayin v'lishlaham. Amen. We continue on the top of page 393 as Bruce leads us there responsively.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol, Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Adonai Abo, Iti,
Umaromona, Shemo Yada. Lecha Adonai Hagedula, V'Hagivura, V'Hatiferet, V'Hanetzach, V'Hahod. Ki kol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Ki kol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz. Lecha Adonai Hamamlaka, V'Haminaseh Lechol Holy Rosh. Romemu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, V'hishtachavu, V'hishtachavu, Lehadom Raglav Kadoshu. Romemu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, V'hishtachavu, V'hishtachavu, Lehar Kodsho, Ki Kadosh, Ki Kadosh, Adonai Eloheinu. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Morasha Kehilat Yaakov, Morasha Kehilat Yaakov, Morasha Kehilat Yaakov, Torah tziva lanu Moshe. David Melech Yisrael Chai Chai V'Kayam. 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 I think that's the longest Torah processional I've seen here yet.
They thought I got lost.
Bruce wasn't sure where he was going. Friends, please be seated. As each of our readers is reading this morning, their tutors are going to come up to stand next to them to keep them company as they're reading.
So we are going to be chanting on page 395. And the congregation response is 397. So for the first aliyah, Carol Feltman will be our reader, and we will be calling Carol, Laura Feltman, and Rebecca Feltman to the Torah. So we're on 395 first. Ve'yazor v'yagen ve'yoshia lechol hachosim bo v'nomar amen. Hakol havu godel Eloheinu utnu chavod laTorah. Ta'amodna chaya bat asher ve'rachel. Ela bat chaya ve'gita. Ve'ruvena ashera bat chaya ve'gita. La'aliyah harishona. Baruch Shenatan Torah li'amo Yisrael, b'kedushato together. V'atem hadvekim b'Adonai Elohechem, chayim kulchem hayom. Have you guys been practicing? Yeah? All right, good. Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Ha'olam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'yadaber Adonai el Moshe lemor ki tisa et rosh b'nei Yisrael lifkudehem v'nat nu ish kofer nafsho l'Adonai bifkod otam v'lo yiyeh behem negef bifkod otam ze yitnu kol ha'aver al ha'pekudim machatzi tashekel b'shekel ha'kodosh esrim gerah hashekel machatzi tashekel truma
L'Adonai. Where'd you end?
Ladonai.
Okay. Kiss Torah, all three? Yes. All three of you kiss the Torah. Is it yes?
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu
Asher natan lanu Torah emes v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We say Yasher Koach to Carol and to Rebecca and to Laura. No cheating. No, you did great.
Okay.
Come to this side, please. Three of you come to this side.
For the second Aliyah, Lois Manis is our reader, and we'll be calling Lois and Peter Manis. Ya'amdu Naomi bat Levi Avram ben Menachem la'Aliyah Hashemit.
How you doing? Wonderful. You guys are gonna kiss. Going to kiss the Torah. We're practicing together.
And Adonai Hamorah.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'dishanu b'tnanu mikal ha'olamim.
V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Can you hold that side?
Amen. Kol ha'over al hapkodim iten esrim shana v'mahala iten teromat Adonai asher lo yorbei v'hadal lo yamid mimakatzid hashakel latet eteromat Adonai v'haper al nafshotekem v'lakatah et kasef hakipurim me'ed lifnei Yisrael v'natatah oto al avodat ohel moed v'layatah lifnei yatahel hazikaron lifnei Adonai levakeher
Al nafshotechem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher natan lanu Torah emet v'haya olam. Natan b'tzoenu.
Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Again, we say Yasher Koach to the Feltmans. We say Yasher Koach. Well, it's very, very nice job. You can breathe, Lois. And Yasher Koach to Peter. I have to say, Peter, one of the great pleasures I've had over the last several weeks has been watching Peter whenever Lois has been up here. I've tried to get other people to do that, and like he's looking at his wife in a whole new way. In a good way, I think, right? So we say Yasher Koach and Mazel Tov to you. Feltmans, you may be seated, and you guys are going to hang out on this side.
For the third Aliyah, our reader will be Diana Friedman, or Deanna, and we'll be calling for the Aliyah, the honor, Deanna with Jill Witten, accompanied by Herb Watson. Tamona, Chaya, Charna, Yeta, Bat Zvi, Daveru, Gittel, Bat Reuven, Bechana, La Aliyah HaShlishit.
Jill, would you like to join Deanna in kissing the Torah? Right about there. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bakar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. You guys like to hold that side of the Torah? You good?
Amen. Vadaber Adonai El Moshe Lemor Vasita Kior Nechoshet Vakano Nechoshet Laraksa Venatata Oto Bein Oel Moed Uvein Hamizbeach Venatata Shama Mayim Barakatsu Aharon Uvanahav Mimenu Et Yedehem Ve'et Raglehem Bevo'am El Ohel Moed Yerchatsu Mayim Valoho Yamutu Oho Vegishtam El Amizbeach L'sharet Lahaktir Isheh La'adonai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher natan lanu Torah emet V'chai olam natan betokenu Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Again, we wish Yasher Koach to Peter and Lois. And I say Yasher Koach to Deanna. You did a great job, Deanna. You can drink now. Deanna's been waiting with great excitement for this particular moment and to be done. And we say Yasher Koach and Mazel Tov to Deanna and to Herb and to Jill. And I invite you guys to come over to this side. Congratulations.
For
Come
the
over to
fourth Aliyah, our reader will be Betsy Rossheim, and we will be calling Betsy. Because I was going to say because your children have her grandchildren.
Betsy's daughter sent me a picture of Betsy's grandchild with snow like almost up to her head in suburban Maryland, and they couldn't quite get out. So.
Ta'amod, Bat Sheva, Bat Chaim, V'Miriam, La Aliyah HaRevi'it.
Hang on one sec. Hold on one sec. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. Sneaky too. Okay. Right, that's right, right? Yes.
Baruch et Adonai Hamarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Hamarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher b'charbonu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. V'rachatzu yedehem v'raglehem v'lo yamutu v'haita lahem hokolam lo ulzaro ledorotam v'daber Adonai El Moshe lemor ve'ata kach lecha v'samim rosh morderor hamesh meot ve'kinmon besem ve'mechatzito hamishim u'matayim ukne vesem hamishim u've'hat matamayim. Close. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam notah b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. Can we say Yasher Koach to Deanna and to Jill and to Herb? And a very hearty Yasher Koach to Betsy for very, very fine Torah chanting this morning. They will be very proud when they watch the DVD. I invite you to this side, Betsy.
For the fifth Aliyah, we call as our reader Bruce Sykes. And for the honor of witnessing, we call not only Bruce, but Glenda Sykes and Bruce's tutor, Alan Howard. Yamdu Chaim ben Avraham, Giti bat Milka v'Chana, ve'Avraham ben Moshe, la'aliyah ha'chamishit.
Touch it right. No, you Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'chanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. Gordon, would you like to hold that side of the Torah for your husband? Yes. Yeah, excellent.
Amen. Zikada hamesh meot v'shel hakodesh v'shayaman ziyatin v'asita uto shemein mishkat kodesh rokach mikakat ner sherokeach shemein mishkat kodesh yiyeh Umashata ve'od el ho'em moed ve'ad Aaron ha'edu. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu
wish a very, very hearty mazel tov and yasher koach to Bruce, as well as to Alan and Glenn. Alan, nice work. Everybody practiced in their own places, but it just so happens that Bruce mostly practiced here on Thursday afternoons after Torah study. And so I watched Bruce standing in the social hall with his headphones on, listening to Alan, chanting and practicing for a very long time now. And it's so nice to hear it. So nice to see it, not in front of the computer, but in here, Bruce. Awesome. In the presence of the Torah, between readers, we pause for Misha Berach, prayers of healing. I invite you to turn to the backs of your prayer books where you will find Misha Berach, the blessing pasted in. When we sing Misha Berach, except for when we sing Misha Berach, we ask God to bring a refuah shalema, a complete healing, a healing of wholeness to those who need it. In the presence of the Torah, we pause to think of those who are ailing in body, in mind, and spirit. And we ask that they find the shalom that they need, recognizing that forms differently for different folks. We'll sing the first paragraph of the blessing. We'll pause in the middle to say the names of those for whom we pray, and then we'll sing the second paragraph. Please join us. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. On this Shabbat we pray for Ira Krams, Hayes Press, Marvin Hausman, B. Legum, Mitchell Billings, Rich Higgins, Donna Billings, Mimi Loring, Don Hahamovich, Peter Manis, Barry Polsky, Henry Hallerman, Fred Levy, Shelley Booth, Rosalind Salzman, Kimberly Alter, Bert Aaron, Steve Alter, Gabe Kaz, Martha Hunsaker, Jim Hunsaker, Sylvia Kahn, Sam Traeger, Janet Bornstein, Joe Myers, Ethel Sternberg, Janet Wolf, Micah Marcus Fremuth, Aaron Mace, Justin Billings, Miriam Kaplan, Mary Johnson, Buster Wiacki, Mary John Bledsoe, Valerie Loomis, Richard Hart, Larry Saunders, George Booth, George Backer, Barbara Levsky, Lisa Berlowitz, Alyssa Press, Irvin Zide, Beverly Olson, Noreen Howard, Pam Hurley, Stephen Jacob, Tracy Johnston, Jesse Gross, Hootie Gross. If you'd like to share the name of someone for whom you're praying this morning, please raise your hand and I'll go around the room starting. Yeah. Mer. Paul. Joe. Upstairs?
Frank Friedland.
Come. Any others? Oh, Peter. Are you raising your hand, Ethan? I had the names of Noah Katz, Phil Kaplan, Sheldon Horowitz, Jack Maroney, Rob Lichtenstein, and Stephen Sittons. I'm fine. Noah just has a virus, but it's been a long week, so I'd like that to be over. We pause for all of those who need prayers but do not wish to have their names shared aloud, as well as anyone who does not have someone to pray for them. Let's continue. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
For the sixth Aliyah, we're going to call Shelley Conrad as our reader, and for the Aliyah, the honor of witnessing, we call Shelley and Maya Conrad Burton. And John.
And John.
Okay. Ta'amodna sucha leah bat Shmuel ve'fruma ve'maya Yocheved bat sucha ve'Yisrael ve'Yochanan Aharon ben Abraham la'aliyah hashishit.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You want it like immediate? As soon as you come up? Hold on. I had it lost. Since you switched yards on me, it takes me a minute. There's a lot of it's right here, actually. I kinda,
Yes.
Yeah, I apologize.
Yeah, she has 3,100 credits.
Yeah. Of course,
I'll tell you the story of the yard.
Oh, okay, go ahead. That's a good idea.
The
Thank you.
story of the yard.
Okay.
The story of the yard is when Jordan was studying in Italy, she went to Italy's largest antique fair, which was in the town where she was studying, Arezzo, and she found this lovely antique 19th century yard, which she brought back for her mother, and which her mother has loaned to me.
Loan.
Only a loan.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's a room. You see it, son? Oh, there it is. Yeah, right in front of my face. Yeah. You know, the thing that most needs to be invented in the world is Post-it tabs that are allowed to be put on the table.
Oh, and repair our little.
Oh, yeah. Wait, oh, no. We're going to work on that. Okay. Would you all like to kiss the Torah?
Mm-hmm.
It's right in front of us. Now I want to do something.
Baruch et Adonai HaMivarach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMivarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Oh, I lost it.
No,
It's here, but I lost it.
So this,
Isn't this it? Ashul Khan?
yeah.
Yeah.
It was right in the middle.
Yeah, that's it.
We'll talk later.
Okay.
Amen. Ve'et hashulchan, ve'et kol kelai, ve'et hamnorah, ve'et kelecha, ve'et mizbach ha'toret, ve'et mizbach ha'olah, ve'et kol kelai, ve'et hakiyor, ve'et kano, ve'et I'm lost here. Ve'kidash ta'otam, ve'hayu kol
Kodesh Kadashim, Kol Hanogea Bahem Yikdash, Ve'et Anharon, Ve'et Banav Timshah, Ve'kidashta Otam Lechahem Li.
If you'd like to kiss the Torah. You're leaving it on front. It's
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Again, we say Yasher Koach to Bruce and to Glenda and to Alan. And we say hearty Yasher Koach and Mazel Tov to Shelley and to Maya and to John. Maya has now tutored her daughters and her mother, and they are all still alive.
And so am I.
And I continue to be impressed by that fact.
Still mostly sane.
Mostly sane.
Well, I don't know that we were sane before, but
Do you, I'm
For
going to
the-
point
you're
and
pointing.
I'm pointing and I'll chant.
This is sight reading.
Okay.
I have to sight read this.
So we need to take this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who's doing the alleles?
They all are
They-
together.
Oh, they're
Yeah.
together, okay.
For the seventh aliyah, we call pinch hitter, our best pinch hitter, Maya Conrad as our reader, and we're going to be calling for the aliyah, all the members of the adult bnei mitzvah class. Ya'amdu Chaya bat Asher ve'Rachel, Naomi bat Levi ve'Avram, Chaya Charna Yeta bat Zvida ve'Ruth, bat Sheva bat Chaim ve'Miriam, Chaim ben Avraham, Sucha Leah bat Shmuel ve'Fruma, la'aliyah hashvi'it.
You all need to come kiss the Torah. Right there. Come kiss the Torah. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'haranu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yep.
Amen. Ve'el b'nei Yisrael tidaber lemor shemen mishchat kodesh yiyeh zeh li ledorotechem al b'shar adam lo yisach uvmat kunto lo ta'asu kamohu kodeshu kodesh yeh lachem ish asher yirkach kamohu va'asher yitain mimenu alzar v'nichrat me'amai vayomer Adonai el Moshe kach lecha samim natav ushchelet v'chel bana samim ulvona zakah bad bavar yiyeh ve'asita ota ketoret, rokach maaseh, rokeach, memulach, tahor kodesh.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natananu Torah emet, v'ha'olam tadotenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. We say thank you and Mazel Tov and Yasher Koach to Maya, who's reading for her daughter who is home ill this morning. To all of you, Yasher Koach and Mazel Tov. What a fine, fine job you all have done this morning. And you're going to stay right here. And stay right here. If you came up for an Aliyah this morning, if you participated in the Torah service in any way, I invite you to please rise at your seats. Bruce, can I have a prayer book from over there, please? Thank you kindly. If you'd like, the Misha Beirach for those who've received Aliyot is on page 403 if you'd like to follow along. Misha Beirach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah hu yivarech et kol eila she'alu hayom lichvod hamakom lichvod haTorah v'lichvod haShabbat v'yischar zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu yichayim v'yishmerei mikol tzara v'tzukah imo kol nega u'machala v'yishlach bracha v'hatzlacha b'chol ma'aseh yedehem v'yivarchem im kol Yisrael achechem v'achotechem v'no mahar. Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless all those here who have risen today to the honor of the omnipresent, and to the honor of the Torah, and to the honor of Shabbat. And by this merit may they be granted life and kept from all trouble and affliction, and from every harm or sickness. And may they find blessing and success in all their labors, along with all of Israel, all their brothers and their sisters. And let us say, Amen. You all may be seated. Not you.
No, not mine.
No, hold on. First, you get to receive an extra Misha Beirach this morning. Trust me, I told you about it. You don't have to do anything. You just have to stand here. Okay, I have to conjugate extra Hebrew, but you don't have to do anything. On page 688 is the Misha Beirach for bar or bat mitzvah. The plural is not there, so I'm hopefully pluralizing correctly as we go. Come closer. Page 688. You can face me, sure. If you want to follow along, you can do whatever you want. Misha Beirach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah hu yivarech et chevrei b'nei mitzvah asher alu hayom lichvod hamakom v'lichvod haTorah v'hamitzvah yehi Elohim imam bayamim habaim ka'asher haya imam miyom havaldam va'ad hena yehi ratzon Elohim legadlam bivriut haguf v'hanefesh v'tvuna uva'anavat chen ba'ahavat habriut uva'ahavat Torah v'yimtzah chen b'sechel tov b'einei Elohim v'adam yir'u horam v'yismachu ukrovam ya'alozu v'no mahar. Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless Deanna, Shelley, Bruce, Carol, Lois, and Betsy, the children of their parents who have risen today for the honor of the omnipresent and for the honor of Torah and of mitzvah. May God's presence fill their lives in days to come, as God's sustenance has been with them since the days of their birth. May they grow in health of body and of spirit, in wisdom and in graciousness, humility, and love of others, and in love of Torah. May they find favor and distinction in the eyes of God and of their fellow human beings. And let us say, Amen. You are blessed, and you may be seated.
In multiple ways.
In multiple ways. You may be seated.
Now we have the honor of calling John Burton for lifting the scroll, and Flo Gussman and Alan Howard for binding. Yamdu Hamag Bia V'Hagolalim. Please rise. And we're on page 407 to sing while John rises. Lifts the Torah.
Alan, Flo, why don't you guys come to this side? Page 407. Vezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai biyad Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Morasha kehilat Yaakov, Morasha kehilat Yaakov, Morasha kehilat Yaakov, Torah tziva lanu Moshe. Please be seated. Yasher Koach, and thank you, Alan. Come. At this time, part of our Saturday morning services is reading from the prophets. It is my honor to call forth Maya, who is filling in for two daughters this morning. Maya will be reading the blessings before the Haftarah, chanting the reading from the Haftarah, which can be found in your program, and the blessings after. The blessings before and after the Haftarah can be found on pages 409 and 411.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'nviim tovim, v'ratzah v'divreihem hane'emarim bemet. Baruch atah Adonai abocher b'torah u'b'Moshe avdo u'b'Yisrael amo ובנביאי האמת והצדק. וישלח אחאב בכל בני ישראל, ויקבוץ את הנביאים אל הר הכרמל, ויגש אליהו אל כל העם, ויאמר עד מתי אתם פוסקים על שתי הסיפים? אם אדוני האלוהים לכו אחריי, ואם הבעל לכו אחריי, ולא ענו העם אותו דבר. ויאמר אליהו אל העם, אני נטרתי נביא לאדוני לבדי, ונביאי הבעל 450 איש, ויתנו לנו שניים פרים, ויבחרו להם הפר האחד, וינחו, וישימו על העצים, באש לא ישימו, ואני אעשה את הפר האחד, ונתתי על העצים, באש לא אשים, וקראתם בשם אלוהיכם, ואני אקרא בשם אדוני, והיה האלוהים asher ya'aneh va'esh hua Elohim v'yan kol ha'am vayomru tov hadavar vayomer Eliyahu linvihi habal bacharu lachem hapar ha'echad v'yasu rishona ki atem harabim v'kiru b'shem Elohechem v'esh lo hasimu v'yichu et hapar asher natan lahem v'ya'asu v'ykru'u b'shem haba v'haboker v'yad hatzaharaim le'mor haba anenu ve'ein kol ve'ein aneh v'faschu ha'mizbeach asher asah v'hi v'tzaharaim v'hatel v'hem Eliyahu v'yomer kiru v'kol gadol ki Elohim hu ki siach v'chi sig lo v'chi derech lo ulai yashevu v'yikatz v'yikra'u b'kol gadol v'yitgodu k'mishpatam v'charavot u'barmachim ad shafachtam alehem v'hi ka'avor hatzaharaim v'yitnabu ad la'alot hamincha ve'ein kol ve'ein oneh ve'ein kashev v'yomer Eliyahu l'chol ha'am gishu elai v'yigshu chol ha'am elai v'rapei et mizbach Adonai eharus v'yikach Eliyahu shetei mesrei avanim k'mispar shiftei v'nei Yaakov asher haya devar Adonai elai v'leimor Yisrael yiyeshemecha v'yiten et avanim mizbeach b'shem Adonai v'yas ta'ala kaveit satayim zera saviv lamizbeach v'ya'aroch et ha'etzim v'natach et hapar v'yasem al ha'etzim v'yomer milu arba'a chadim mayim v'yitzku al ha'olah v'al ha'etzim v'yomer shenu v'yishnu v'yomer shaleshu v'shaleshu v'yilchu hamayim saviv lamizbeach v'gam et hatalah milei mayim v'hi ba'alot hamincha v'yigash Eliyahu hanavi v'yamar Adonai Elohei Abraham Yitzchak v'Yisrael hayom yivada ki ata Elohim v'Yisrael v'ani avdecha u'vivarcha asiti et kol hadvarim ha'eleh haneni Adonai haneni v'yidu ha'am hazeh ki ata Adonai ha'Elohim v'ata hasibota et libam acharanit v'tipol esh Adonai v'tachal et ha'olah v'et ha'etzim v'et ha'avanim v'et ha'afar ואת המים אשר בתלה לכך. וירא כל העם ויפלו על פניהם ויאמרו אדוני הוא האלוהים, אדוני הוא האלוהים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק, נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, בנאמנים דבריך, בדבר אחד מדבריך, אחור לא ישוב ריקם, כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הנאמן בכל דבריו. רחם על ציון כי הבאת חיינו, ולעמך ישראל תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני משמח ציון בבניה. שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו, וחשיב לעבוד על בנים ולב בנים על אבותם, וביתך בית תפילה יקרא לכל העמים. ברוך אתה אדוני מביא שלום לעד. Amen.
I thought you were doing that one. I thought you were doing that one.
Yasher Koach, Maya, thank you so very much. Nice full day for Maya this morning. Friends, yeah, you're grateful. They're grateful they didn't have to do that. The next adult b'nai mitzvah class, who knows what you'll do? I don't know. There are, by the way, the six of you, as I've mentioned, are kind of an advertisement for the notion of this process continuing. So I know there's 2 or 3 people in this room who have expressed interest in doing this again. I'm going to wait a few weeks till we talk about that, but at some point we're going to move forward. For now, I'd like to invite the 6 of you to please come forward. Please come forward. And I'd like to invite everyone to turn to page 531. Deanna, Bruce, Carol, Shelley, Lois, Betsy, I believe I'm correct, stand over here. I believe I'm correct that this is in fact your first adult b'nai mitzvah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yes.
And last.
And
When he gets to be a child again, he'll arrive.
when you go all the way around, you can do it again. For 4 of you, right? It was the first time you've read from the Torah. 3 of you. Lois, your very first time reading from the Torah. Your very first time reading from the Torah. Your first time reading from the Torah, and your first time reading from the Torah. Deanna read at Philip's bar mitzvah, and you read at Rachel's bar mitzvah. Still, and at Felice's and at George's. Excellent. Still, when in Judaism we have a very special prayer that we say when we do something for the very first time, when we reach a special moment in our lives. And on the bottom of page 500, don't look up. Don't look up. For those who are new to us this morning, please join us as we recite together the Shehechianu on page 531. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'nigiyanu lazman hazeh. Mazel tov. Simen tavu, mazel tavu, mazel tavu, simen tavu, simen tavu, mazel tavu, mazel tavu, simen tavu, mazel tavu, mazel tavu, simen tavu. Yehelanu, 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 Ulechol Yisrael. celebrate the sweetness of learning by tossing candy at our bar and bat mitzvah students. Here in our more genteel Virginia way, we gently drop our parachutes, and we thank Flo, who made these parachutes long ago. Maya is our customary jump mistress, and I have to say, Maya, I have been very touched by how excited you were to drop parachutes on your mother and her classmates. And
They originally said no. I said,
no. We cannot have bar bat mitzvah here at Temple Bethel without it. Thank you to our droppers, and I hope those who like candy got some. At this time, it is a pleasure for several of us to share thoughts and words and items with you. For our first presenter this morning, Bart, you found everything that you were looking for?
Yes.
Excellent. The first person this morning is the chair of Temple Bethel's Ritual Committee, Bart Singer. We'll be accompanied by another member of our Ritual Committee, Naomi Gold, who together have completely violated something that you all asked. Well, you said you didn't want gifts, but tough.
I'm also violating, I'm reading in the sanctuary. No, but not in the sanctuary.
Yeah. Chocolate.
Shabbat shalom.
Oh, yeah.
My turn now.
Okay.
Shabbat shalom. It's traditional for parents to offer some words of wisdom to their child at the child's bar bat mitzvah. And while the details of those words vary considerably, the customary message is that you should be proud of the work that you have done to get to this point, but that the bar bat mitzvah celebration is not an end, but rather a beginning to a new phase in your life. The road ahead will not always be smooth, but neither was accomplishing this milestone achievement. When seemingly insurmountable difficulties face you in the future, you should recall how persistence and hard work, a little at a time, ate away at the difficulties involved in becoming a bar bat mitzvah, and ultimately resulted in today's memorable event. So while the Temple Bethel Ritual Committee, none of us are parents of any of the members of the adult mitzvah class,
And aren't you the lucky one?
our message to you is the same. You should be proud of the considerable work that you have done to get to this point. We know that the road was not easy. You all worked very hard to master new skills while simultaneously managing all the other demands on your lives. You showed great commitment and tenacity, and your achievements today are ones that you should remember for the rest of your lives. Like many bnai mitzvah children, you spoke back to us, the members of the Temple Bethel Ritual Committee. You argued that you would prefer for us to donate to your Mitzvah Day project rather than provide you with any gifts. And as parents sometimes tell their children that what the parents are doing is for their children's own good, so too, the Ritual Committee, after some thoughtful discussion, decided that in spite of protests to the contrary, it was appropriate and important for us to provide each of you with a gift of religious significance. We hope that you may use them joyously throughout your lives, and that they will serve as symbols of what you can achieve when you decide that something is sufficiently important. Also, like good parents, we listened to what you had to say, and after some more thoughtful discussion, we decided to contribute $100 plus high, $118 to your Mitzvah Day project. We know that this money was put to good use. We hope that these gifts will serve as symbols for you in the future, inspiring you to take on additional projects of great merit and reminding you of the pride and joy you experience when such endeavors come to fruition. So now, all of these are the same, but all of these are individually addressed. So, Diana, Bruce.
If somebody wants to show off their gift as you get it, you're welcome. After the work of the Ritual Committee, our Ritual Committee is so much fun, and they put a lot of thought in. I mean, it's really pretty fun. So they put a lot of thought into what they were getting for you guys.
Yeah, let's see. And, well, so you get one. No, it's not chocolate.
Not chocolate. Bruce, could you hold that up? So, as many of you know, we recently, our TBE school students all made their own Kiddush cups, and we're in the middle of constructing a cabinet that's going to go in the social
prepared very much ahead of time, you are certainly all blessed. These cups, in spite of being ordered something like 2 months ago, arrived yesterday.
Because of the snow, right? Well, we
May
can.
you all use this stuff well, and may you continue to enrich your lives with Jewish things for the rest of your lives.
Thank you. And we can assure you all it will not be apple juice or grape juice.
Our next presenter is the president of our synagogue, Jason. What you need is right there. Put whatever you want.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
All I can say is I have a little inside knowledge on the arrival of those cups. And my wife, who's been running the gift shop in recent months, made one of those quiet phone calls to them a couple of days ago, and I knew it would be here pronto. Right there? It's close. Such fine company.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, yes. What is a bar bat mitzvah? A bnai mitzvah is more than an event. As we say in Jewish tradition, you do not have a bar bat mitzvah, you become one. A bnai mitzvah is not a day, it is a person, and it is what you are becoming. And this process gives you not only the chance to study Torah, to learn the prayers, and to interpret and teach the weekly Torah portion, much as what we've seen today, but it also to be a responsible, productive, and caring person. As we would typically say, to explore what it means to be an adult. But bar and bat mitzvah is not only about the person, it's about the family. And as I look around today and see all these supportive, smiling, and getting hungry faces, it's really looks like you guys have a very big family. So on behalf of Temple Bethel, I would like to present each of you with your own certificate, suitable for framing. You gotta say it. I will show one, suitable for framing. And I want you to know that we now consider all of you adults.
I is standing up going, "Yay!"
Yeah, regardless of how they be.
All I know is when you said don't look up and I noticed it was raining, I wondered if it was because they were fearing some lightning might happen.
One never knows.
Okay, let me, there we go. Right, can we just lay them up here or hand them out?
Yeah, well, we can read.
Okay.
We've got the
You
word.
want to have them now? Yeah, you're not sure adults.
Now that we're
Back of the line.
No, you're not.
I will say that some of us are getting ready to go into our second childhood.
Thank you. But I must
Will
say
will
that
be
I
changed
personally,
tomorrow.
at the age of 83, being told that I'm still becoming.
Thank you, Dave.
Good one.
Excuse me. I'd like 6 of you to go up there, please.
Go up there.
Up there.
Get away from him.
Yeah, leave your stuff. It's not going anywhere. What do you think I'm gonna say? Several people have asked me what is different about adults becoming bnai mitzvah. Obviously, you're not 13-year-olds. So there are certain social aspects of this experience that are rather different for all of you, along with the fact that you're not currently experiencing the physical issues associated with being in the early stages of teenagehood. More than anything, your bnai mitzvah is different because it's not the same kind of rite of passage that our young members experience when they turn 13. This isn't the first time that you've taken on a major public challenge or It's not the first time you've had to master something very specific for its own sake. Nor is it the first time that you're considered to be an adult in a particular community. I can't say that your friends and family weren't making faces and winking at you during the service, but that's clearly not something restricted to teenagers. Becoming bar bat mitzvah as an adult is less of a developmental milestone, but still very much a triumphant personal achievement. For over 2 years now, you've each been working towards this morning, this moment. Each of you facing different issues along the way, like having to finally learn how to read Hebrew, or facing the discomfort of singing and chanting and reading in public. Not looking at anyone in particular. You are each motivated by different reasons. Although when we talked about why you wanted to do this, back when we first started, I think you all agreed that this is something that you've wanted to do for a long time, but for one reason or another never did. What I don't know if you realized at the beginning, something I'm sure you're very aware of now, is that more than anything else, adult bnai mitzvah is really about opening yourselves up, about sharing a part of your soul that others don't often see. Leading prayer and chanting Torah in front of others are acts of self-exposure. No matter how much you might try to be in control of yourself, a very deep part of you is on display while you do it. Last night and this morning, you were each willing to open yourselves up to us, to share those parts of yourselves and your souls with us. Doing that, when it's not your vocation, is an act of bravery and self-sacrifice. That choice to be exposed to others like this both creates and strengthens the communal bonds that tie all of us together and serve as a model and a reminder to the rest of us that truly being in community means trusting each other enough to be brutally honest about who we are in all different kinds of ways. You doing this last night, this morning, and over the last 2 years has been an authentic gift to the rest of us, the other members of all of your communities. And for this we extend deep and genuine thanks. The path to reach this moment was filled with laughter, surprise, annoyance, and frustration. You've bonded with each other, you've been annoyed with each other, you've supported and celebrated each other on your road to this moment. I'd like to express to all of you my deepest sense of awe. I know that the challenge of doing this probably didn't become truly clear until last night and this morning. And yet each of you looked that challenge in the eye and shared with us your deepest, most genuine selves. There is no greater gift than that. At this moment, I also want to thank all of the people who enabled you to get here. Your families, your friends, the other members of our congregation, and the other communities in which you spend your time. I especially want to thank your tutors and your teachers, Alan and Maya and Rabbi Sylvie, and all others, grandchildren, who helped you work through the specifics you needed to do this. It is a truly deep blessing for you to have all of those others, and for us to have all of you in our lives. At this moment, I have the honor of blessing you. As you leave here this morning, may you genuinely rejoice in and deeply celebrate the marvelous things you have accomplished in order to become bar and bat mitzvah. This is an achievement truly worth celebrating for your friends and families, for your communities, and for yourselves. May you continue to encounter and to take on new challenges and opportunities in your lives. And may they be worthy of the brilliant, dedicated, and generous May your encounter with Torah this morning and over the past 2 years continue to serve as a spark of engagement and commitment to Judaism, and a spark of encounter with mystery and the divine for your souls. As you take your places in new ways in the chain of transmission that stretches from Mount Sinai to today and on into the future, may you continue to serve as role models for the countless others who question and wrestle with our sacred tradition. May they find in you not answers, for ours is not a tradition of answers, but the inspiration for new questions that may help propel them along their path. Above all, may your life be filled, your lives be filled with smiles and fun, happiness and joy, love, light, laughter, and most of all, shalom, wholeness. Can you hear us on this? Be God to all, and we say together. Amen. Group hug. Mazel tov. So, is anybody hungry? We're going to move towards the end of our service. I invite you all to go sit down. You're welcome. I'd like to invite up our ARC closers, Bella Weiner and Noah Falk, of our third and fourth upcoming bnai mitzvot. I'll invite everyone to please turn to page 433 and to rise in honor of the Torah. Page 433. Noah, grab that on your right, please. Yeah, hallelujah, et Shem Adonai, Ki nizgav Shemo levado, Hodo al eretz v'shamayim, v'yaharem keherem v'yahamo, tehila lechol chasidav, livnei Yisrael, am kerovo, hallelujah, hallelujah. Page 441. Wait, you all come back here for 1 second. Students, come back here. Page 441. Eitz chayim hi lemachazim baras v'tom echecha me'ushar terafecha darfei noam v'chol netivotecha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha benashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Please be seated. Everyone accept that?
It doesn't end yet.
The Torah doesn't want to go away. Oh,
On page 443, Ein Keloheinu.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadoneinu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kamoshienu, Mi Keloheinu, Mi Kadoneinu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kamoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adoneinu, Nodel Emalkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu,
turn to page 445 for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'teit gedula li'avtzer breishi shelo asanu kigoye haratzot ve'lo hosamanu kamishpachot hadama shelo sam chelkenu kohem ve'gohor aleinu kevol hamonam va'anachnu korim umishtakavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim v'yosei haaretz umoshav yekaro b'shamayim mima'al ushchinatu zo v'gohei meheromim hu Eloheinu ein hod emet malkeinu efes zulato kakahatu b'torato v'yadata hayom v'hashevota elevavecha ki Adonai hu ha-Elohim b'shamayim mima'al v'al ha'aretz mitachat ein od kakatu b'toratecha Adonai imlo le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol ha'aretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Friends, we'll continue in a moment on page 451 with Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. It is our custom to invite those who are in mourning or observing a yahrzeit to share a brief story or memory about the person for whom you're saying Kaddish. Is there anyone who would like to share a very brief story or a memory about someone this morning? Shall?
It's Kaddish for my grandmother, Esther Soria, my betrothed grandmother, who came from Russia. And she was a Holocaust. And in her home, my mother remembers this, when my mother was a little child. Whoever came to America from my grandmother's village, she was like the Underground Railroad. They came to her house first. So my grandmother and my grandfather were the first people that they came to. And they stayed there until my grandmother and grandfather found a home and a job. But the first night that they were there, they would drink tea through a sugar cube from a glass, and they would eat caffeine until 2 or 3 in the morning, at which point, in Yiddish, at which point my grandmother would slam her hands on the table and say, "That's it, no more Yiddish ever again. From now on you speak English or you'll be a greedy man."
Thank you, Shelley. That's good. Any others? Are there other stories? On this Shabbat, we observe the yahrzeits of Riva Polsky, Alan Jacob, Muriel Strudler, Edwin Markoff, Norman Weiner, Florence Kahn Rubin, Mary Margolik-Novich, Mary Rosenzweig, Maurice Welt, Jack Garland, Dora Pasternak, Kenneth Huberman, Ben Molin, Fanny Press, Anna C. Kirsch, Max Chasin, Zymek Citrons, Donald Sherman, Irving Birnbaum, Arthur J. Kirsch, Sidney Lerman, Marilyn Edelman, Irving Reba, Hannah Batchenachaya, Roberta Daniel, Eve Griffith, Jerry Joseph, Pamela Petracci, Louise Gregory, Arthur Freeman, Hank Karp, Ann Feiner, Bill Glassman, Mindy Krakauer, Ed Jenkins, Muriel Morris. Is anyone in mourning for observing the yard site of someone whose name I did not mention? Invite all, what was your grandma's name? And we had the name of Shirley Temple, who Shelley was a friend of Shelley's, who she spoke about last night, and has a great story about Shirley Temple. That meet her at lunch, and Shelley, you'll tell that story at lunch, right here. I invite all those who are in mourning observing a yard site to please rise, as well as those who would like to, or those whose custom it is to rise for Mourner's Kaddish. Mourner's Kaddish Kaddish Yatom is on page 451. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah B'alma divrach hiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei t'chol beit Yisrael B'agala uvizman kariv v'yamru amen Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam ulamei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudesha barichu La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran b'yalma v'yamru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav hu ya'asei shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yamru amen. Please be seated. I'm giving Norm a break. Announcements are as follows. If you'd like to know what is happening upcoming at Temple Bethel, go to our website, open your e-news, look on the piece of paper hanging on the bulletin board in the lobby, and you don't have to hear about it right now because we would all like to go eat lunch. Lunch is being held not there, but in the fellowship hall at the Williamsburg United Methodist Church, which is just that way. So you can just go out, walk down the block, and we can go in the front door, and it's right there. If anyone gets lost on the way, it's not the white building, and the next building after that is the Wesley Foundation building, which is the Methodist version of Hillel, and after that it's the really big building. Right after that is where you will find the Methodist Church. Follow the crowd. Families are going to stay for a moment or two so that Erica can do a little bit of work with them. Otherwise, after everyone gets up and goes, we are going to lock this building. So please do not leave anything behind. We're going to have a concluding song in just a minute. But do not leave anything behind, because the next people to walk in this building will be religious school teachers tomorrow morning. A special thanks goes to Larissa Bass, who has been organizing the very nice lunch that you're about to eat and enjoy, along with Margaret Stiglitz, Valerie Weiner, Kristen Falk, and Jill Witten. We would like to thank Flo Gussman for making the wonderful bookmarks that you all have, which really adds a special piece to our service. I would like to thank everybody who did anything to help to make this happen this morning. Mitch for recording, Erica for coming from North Carolina to take photographs, all of you who came from afar, and our thoughts are with those who just are stuck in the snow and couldn't make it here this morning. For the last time, Mazel Tov and thank you. In a couple of weeks, there'll be an announcement that if you're interested in doing this, let me know. It'll be a little while till we really get going. Took them 2 years, no rush. But it is my hope that this is the beginning of something that we'll continue to do for many years. Adult B'nai Mitzvah class, I'm assuming you would like to lead the short version of Adon Olam. It does not matter your age, but at the end of a B'nai Mitzvah, you say, how about the short version so we can get to eat? So I'll invite you guys to come forward. The short version is composed by our own Sarah Krakauer, involves the last 4 words, Adonai Li V'lo Ira. Leave.